Hi everybody, Mama Liz here, and today I'm going to just offer some information so that you all can make an informed decision. Now, as you listen to me, please be aware that I am not here to force your mind into any narrative or to force your mind to believe any storyline. I'm simply here to present the fruits of my effort via my research that I performed this weekend after being requested to look into the Chris McDonough incident. Now, like many of you, I was absolutely surprised when I was told, always behind the curve, that Chris McDonough's channel had been terminated by YouTube. And I immediately wanted to know what in the world was going on. And I remember that I caught a lot of heck. Let me fix my hair. Goodness, I've got some Texas hair today, y'all. I remember that I caught a lot of heck on the first couple of videos I did about feedback in the Summer Wells case regarding the interviews that Chris McDonough performed with the Wells family. And I stated that while I respected his line of questioning and could definitely embrace his line of questioning and how he formulated the questions and the trail that the questions followed, that I did not like the way that he came into their life, almost adapted to their lifestyle, adopted some of their own behaviors, and then would get the information in a trusted way, but then would turn around and go and use it against them. I think you should walk into their life and go, here, I'm here to give you a floor to state your story, to tell your story, but just know that I'm going to look for holes, and I'm gonna go through it with a fine-tooth comb. And if I find something that I think could prove anything, or something that I think needs to be further investigated, I'm going to talk about it. Just you know, disclaimer, I'm going to look through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I may put Jens under a spotlight, a microscope even. Just be honest with the family. I don't always feel like he was terribly honest with those that he was interviewing for the end goal, the end game. What was the end result that he was going toward? Because I don't think it was exactly what the people being interviewed always had in mind. And that's where I had a problem with it. And I caught a lot of crap for having that. And I said, listen, he was trained different. He's old school. I was trained new school. It could be a training difference. And I kind of wanted to pawn it off on that. But I think a lot of it may just be that I have a tendency to look at everyone's rights that is involved in the story and not just my desire, what I can get out of the story. And I try not to tread on anyone's rights, and I try to look at everyone in the scenario and make sure that I'm not doing more harm than good if I put myself in that place. And I don't feel like he always did that, and so I had a little bit of a beef with him, and I caught a lot of crap for it, but I had to be honest with you all and say there's just some things I don't like about him. Other things I really respect, but there's some things I don't like about him, and that's okay. I'm allowed to do that. So when I saw that his channel had been terminated, I thought, I'm going to have to look into this. Because everyone was going super emotional. Everyone was going like a chicken with their head cut off, just after anyone and everyone that had an opinion about this. And I thought, why is the true crime world imploding? Why are these people that could do such great service to humanity by looking at cold cases and stuff, why are they losing their ever freaking loving mind over Chris McDonough? Why is he such, like, almost in a savior position for the true crime community? And then I went back and watched a few more of his videos, because I'd only watched like 2 of his videos. Sorry, I just, you know, I wanted to look at other things. So I watched his body language, his mannerism, and I watched his vocabulary, and when he would say, I've got a bingo card, or when he would use adverbs. His adverbs never were consistent. Positively, absolutely, maybe. I don't think those even belong in the same sentence. Okay, that was not right. So he kind of takes you on this winding emotional ride, but then he wants to say, I've got a bingo card, but you never hear what the bingo card is. But you leave thinking that this man's got it all in control, and you just need to put your faith in him. He's obviously onto something, and you're just not smart enough to see it, so let's just trust the process and trust him. And then I realized that as the the videos progress through the topic he's studying, really nothing else comes to light, and the bingo cards never get laid down to show. But there's always a new bingo card, there's always a new angle, but it begins to follow an emotional storyline rather than a factual storyline. And that's where he loses me, because you all know, if someone asks you to make a decision based on emotion, or tries to plan emotion to get you to make make a step forward, take a step forward, but base it on your emotions, I always go, what are you wanting me to do? What are you trying to get me to do that you don't think I would otherwise want to do? And why are you wanting me to do that? Why are you calling to my emotion rather than my logic? Do you not think I have any logic? Do you think that I am easier swayed by my emotions? Do you not think my brain can combust your material? What's going on here? I always ask those questions, and I always put my bristles up, because they're not being honest. They're manipulating, and I felt a lot of that. But now I still will say, he formulates his questions, and his questions take a very direct and informative path. I like the way he questions people. I don't like the play-by-play that he does with the people watching him and in the chat. I don't like that, because I believe it's more emotional. So I began looking into Chris McDonough. I didn't like what I found. Now there are multiple ways to look at this. That in his older age he may be becoming more emotional, and therefore he is more emotionally connecting with his consumer base. But for me, I would think that someone that has been in the police force that long would be so entrenched and ingrained in those trained procedures that he would not step out of line of them so readily. It would be really ingrained as part of him. I know it's still ingrained in me, so I think it would be still ingrained in him. But in 1998, he did an interrogation on a 14-year-old that was taken into custody without his parents' knowledge that he was in custody. They thought he was in like a state youth home and had been taken in for protection because their daughter had just been killed. But he was taken in, and for 27 hours was questioned until basically he gave what they wanted, which was a statement that he committed the murder. And as you watch the interrogation, you can see that the 14-year-old is distressed. He doesn't understand what's going on. He's being a little bit manipulated, a little bit coerced, a little bit degraded, and played a little bit. And you feel sorry, because you can understand that he doesn't know what's going on. Now, you know I talk about psychology and brain formation, and young men, their brain, their frontal lobe, their social skills do not really become concrete until about 22 to 25 years of age. So this is a 14-year-old young man who is just starting to form those very necessary social skills. He's just a baby in the social skills department. He doesn't understand the construct under which we live. And he is being placed into an adult position to make adult decisions, to make adult statements that he is not mentally understanding and able to understand. And this became a huge ordeal. The police force was called out, and Mr. McDonough called a radio station that was airing the story and was verbally combative with the radio station and wanted to save face. Now, if I were a police officer in that position and I had questioned a 14-year-old in a rather illegal manner, a rather questionable manner, and it had been found out that I had done something that I was going to be sued for, and ultimately the family won, I would have kept my mouth shut. And I would have put that in my memory bank to know that I never need to do that again. That did not work out well. That is not going to make me look like a good person. That is not going to help anyone that is in an investigative process. And it certainly isn't going to help the court, because it could get people released on technicalities that who may actually be guilty, which the young man was not. But the young man's family took everyone that was interrogated him to court and won a multi-million-dollar settlement. So I look at that and go, okay, We have factual evidence that he has taken things too far before. We have to look at it. Then I began looking through his internet career. And once again, I found a time when he had taken things too far and had enraged his chat base, his sub base, his subscriber base, into believing that a man by the name of Jamie on a web sleuth group on YouTube, I believe, he had actually stated that that person, he believed, was in a pedophile ring, a trafficking ring of some sort, and had doxed this man publicly, where people began to show up at this man's home where his family and children resided and were aggressive, physically hostile, physically violent, threatening to take his life. So that made me go, okay, well, he took it too far a second time. At that time, he was not law enforcement. An investigation like that was done probably under questionable morals, and stating a finding that you believed without any verification of it being factual was very much unforgivable, especially for someone who's trained in law enforcement and knows the danger that you can put someone in if you make them a target when they should not be a target. You put people in danger. So I was like, okay, well, there's 2 times. Okay, well, sometimes we can make 2 mistakes. Sometimes, and those were, several years apart. So maybe he just didn't put 2 and 2 together. Let's give the guy another chance, because I fully believe that everyone that's in the true crime community has a skill that they bring to the table. And for him, I believe it's his interview skills. So let's just allow him to use his interview skills, and let's cherish what we each bring positive to the table, and let's learn to leave our negatives out. He can learn to do this, right? Those were several years apart. Maybe he just forgot, and being retired, he got a little too tied up in the emotional woohoo drama that is YouTube. Remember I said this little box is intoxicating? Maybe he got into that. So I'm still trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. Trying. And now we go into the nomadic trick. The feed that he publicly announced was Brian Laundrie's feed, which was not. So I didn't know anything about that. I was under the impression that someone named Benny had gotten him booted. Apparently that was not correct. I think they're not on the best of terms, but apparently that was not correct. But when I went to go look at this profile that he had been publicly chasing and degrading and harassing for a number of days, I immediately knew when I began looking that it couldn't have been Brian Laundrie's, because this account went back to like 2016. That's like 7 years. That would put Brian Laundrie into minor territory, and the material and the subject matter of the account was not minor territory. And there were actually selfies of the owner of the account, and the account very much did not have the vibe, the mentality, the vernacular, the insight of a young man or a teenager. It was very much a mature man. So then I went back to see just what all he had stated against this account. And he had used basically the phrase that I'm absolutely, positively, maybe sure that it's most likely him. I was like, what? Those words don't belong in the same sentence, okay? They don't belong in the same sentence. So then I'm like, number one, if it was Brian Laundrie, and he had any inkling that it could have been Brian Laundrie, as a retired police officer, he should have known that you say nothing, you call the FBI, you report the account, you allow them to investigate, and you allow them to do their job. Because if you go after this account, you are then tipping the hand to the person that could potentially be on the run. We don't want that to occur, right? They could use that to track him, and if he's being so bold and brazen as to use that, they could use it to track him and find him. So why, as an ex-cop, would you make that error? Number two, why would you not look at the entirety of the account and notice that if this had been Brian Laundrie, he would have had to have started the account around the age of 16. And that did not compute, not with the subject matter being talked about. Then we had the statements from the man himself, who was very much going tit for tat with Mr. McDonough in a very aggressive manner. And as we saw in the body cam footage, Brian does this thing called portrayal. He is who you need him to be so that he can fly under the radar and manipulate and get away. He is not a very assertive, aggressive young man to authority figures. So for me, it did not personally identify as what I have witnessed out of the young Brian. So I had questions. And once again, when Chris pled to YouTube, he stated that he was being harassed by trolls sent by a certain YouTuber to harass him and report him, and that he had not done anything wrong. But under the terms YouTube has, if you use your YouTube channel to harass or intimidate someone, then you are in breach of the contract. And he was calling out this man, basically insinuating he was a murderer, demanding that the burden of proof was on this pure stranger. Could have been anyone's YouTube. I mean, what if he'd picked one of you all and demanded you be Brian? How would you have felt? But it was just demanding this man was a murderer, and had actually gotten his entire sub base to attack the man and threaten the man and go after the man, which again makes now the third target that he has created without factual evidence. And that's kind of where I had to stop. Now, I've said many times that the true crime community gets very emotional, and we do. We get very emotional, we get very passionate, and we have to be very careful how we use those emotions. Because like I've told you many times, when you become emotional, you become easily manipulated. So it's better to cool down, take a step back, and check yourself. And if someone is asking you to get emotional, or they're trying to engage you in an emotional rise, come to my team, but you have to be up here. Question that, because we don't make good decisions up here. We make good decisions down here. I don't think that Mr. McDonough has nefarious or malicious intentions. I believe he gets engaged in these stories, and I believe he very much misses his badge and his prime, and he gets carried away with those emotions and that intoxicating effect of being back on the beat, back on the job, back on the crime. And what's very sad for me to see as an ex-cop, as an ex-law enforcement myself, is that he separates and stops behaving like a cop and takes it to an emotional state where he manipulates subscribers, viewers, and detrimentally affects other people's lives to feed perhaps this emotional manifestation he's trying to continue. And that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. As I tell you all, question everything. Even the things that I say, question it all. And never do what someone wants you to do. Never step into that immediately. Take a step back and go, why are you wanting me to do this? What is in it for you? What is in it for me? What could potentially happen? What could go wrong? What could go right? Weigh it out. Don't just blindly follow. And definitely don't just blindly attack. But sadly, this little box has degraded humanity to where we think people are just avatars or recordings on the other side, and we've taken the humanity away from these people. And so we feel justified, especially when we're bored, we're in a place of fear ourselves from a pandemic, and we're dealing with super high emotions anyway. It's kind of a relief to divert them to other things momentarily to let us stop worrying about something else. And I believe this has been a great diversion for many people, but sadly it's just started a secondary problem. So next time you get a diversion, find a diversion that's going to bring you something positive instead of just another negative. Do I think his channel should have been shut down? I think if YouTube will work with him, then he should have been able to have had like a strike or a time period or something. But I think it's very important that he identifies what he continues to do and the parameters he continues to overstep, But I heartily feel that he has something positive to bring to the true crime community. I believe that he is a very good interrogator. I believe that he is a very good interviewer. I believe that he has great formation and flow of questioning and getting that information in a consistent and factual and flowing manner. But when he gets in troubles, when he goes off on these ego and emotion trips, and he forgets to follow rule of law, state law, and ethics. And sadly, even in the position of a YouTube creator, because he is retired law enforcement, he should know to always maintain these, because that is the basis of any strong and good investigation. So I hope that maybe he can go back and talk to himself. Maybe say, okay, I got a little full of myself. I need to cool it down. I need to stop with the bingo cards. I need to stop with the maybe, definitely, maybe, should, kinda, might ought to be. And I need to make sure that I am following the same protocol that I was under at the police force. I need to make sure that I'm abiding by the state laws that I'm in when I'm interviewing these people. I need to make sure that when I am giving information and asking people to follow me in this investigation, I'm asking them to follow me in the facts instead of me and my emotion or me and my ego. And I think that then if he started to be a little bit more careful, his channel would be unstoppable, because he absolutely has skills beyond belief. We all have a hiccup. We all have a deficit. We all have something that trips us up. And I believe for him, it may be the ego and the instant gratification he was receiving from YouTube and from the thousands and thousands of people that were bolstering his newfound glory in this investigative outlet. But I think we all need to chill out and realize that we all bring a piece of this puzzle, and without everyone, it would be a smaller puzzle with a lot less of the picture. And if we can all work together, we can form a great community where we're all bringing something to the table. I know that I watch different channels that have the same topic material because I want different perspectives. And perhaps that's what keeps me from following anyone blindly. Is I have 2 or 3 in the same area that I follow, and I don't take anyone 100%, I take them all about 25%. And maybe that's something that viewers may want to think about doing. I certainly don't want to degrade Mr. McDonough. I believe that he has a great tenacity and skill set that could be very useful in this format. I just would ask that he would be more careful, less emotional, make sure that he is taking steps forward on factual foundation basis, and make sure that he is not asking the public to be an extension of him and do harmful things. Let's stop making targets, and let's simply have a dialogue to where we're all talking about opinions and perceptions and beliefs, and let's stop going after people, and let's start working the case mentally rather than emotionally, and having those talks with ourselves and others rather than going and screaming at someone and doxing a home and putting a family in harm's way. I was surprised when I began looking at all of this. It doesn't take away from all the great things he's done, and he's done a number of great things, but it certainly does give me pause to state that I need to be more careful with my emotional attachment to people that are on the other side of this box, and I need to be more aware of how I'm being emotionally driven or pulled in certain directions, and I think that goes for any YouTube viewer. So again, you make your mind up about the scenario. I just wanted to bring what I found during my research and let you all know what I found. And again, there's room for everybody at this table. We have to have some form of ethical consideration within the group of people doing this, and understand that we can't impede an active investigation or potentially create a scenario where a guilty person can get off on a technicality, or certain intelligence is not admissible in court because of a screw up by the true crime community. We just have to be very careful. And the only other thing that I didn't like was when he allowed one of the victims, the SA victims of Mr. Wells, the floor to tell her story, but he prefaced it with saying everything you're going to hear is truthful and factual. And he should have just said, you're fixing to hear her account of what she went through as a child. This is her statement and her perception of what she went through as a child. He should not have said truthful and factual, because we can't guarantee that. It's not been through court. It's not been investigated. It's not been processed and had a verdict. It was just a statement from a victim. And we can't verify everything they're saying is truth. But those are the little things that I nitpicked that I got a lot of flashback for. I mean, I just got a lot of people just hounding me about that. But now I think that is potentially why I have such a disconnect with him, was I was not willing to jump and follow in those hoops where he was getting a lot of his gratification. So I'm definitely going to be more careful in every regard, in every channel, with every YouTube channel, with every creator. I'm just going to be super careful from now on, because this seems to be a repetitious theme amongst many creators. And I just want you all to be careful. Your time in this world should be positive. You should feel as though you have been on a little mini vacation and done something positive and fruitful and useful, and you made friends. You should not feel like you're tied to something that is eating you alive mentally and emotionally and physically. It should not amp up your life. If this is not used as an outlet to help you cope and reduce stress and kind of distract you from other things that you need a break from, sit down and talk to yourself and see if you're using it in the right manner. Sit down and see if you're creating a higher emotional stress upon yourself, which creates an even higher emotional response to mundane things. It can amp up the way you respond to the tiniest of things. Is it potentially affecting how you interact with your family, your kids, your spouse, your loved ones? Be careful, because this little box can do a lot of damage. And I have become very aware of that in just the last month. So make good decisions, pick good people, and be good to everybody. Even on your less graceful days, and we all know I have those too. Alright, that's what I found. You all make your own decision. Mama Liz out.